There is a deeply uncomfortable truth that polite society refuses to tell you. Your unwavering loyalty is precisely what destroyed his respect for you. You sincerely believed that standing by him when he had absolutely nothing, paying half the rent and silently enduring his emotional absences would guarantee you a seat on the throne when he finally succeeded. Yet here is the devastating paradox. The moment a man secures the empire you so meticulously helped him build, his very first instinct is to abandon the architect. To finally be valued by a man, you must embrace a rather counterintuitive reality. Walking away from his mere potential is the absolute only way to command his ultimate devotion. In this video, we are going to ruthlessly dismantle the toxic fantasy of the ride-or-die woman. Stay with me, and I will reveal exactly why men consistently discard the woman who fixed them and how you can instantly become the Siren, the woman who is handed the keys to the kingdom without ever lifting a single brick. You meet a man brimming with sheer potential. You look at his raw, unpolished life and think that with a touch of devotion, a bit of financial padding, and a rather heroic amount of patience, you might just sculpt him into a king. It is a terribly romantic notion, is it not? The grand delusion that being his devoted ride or die whilst he has absolutely nothing will guarantee your seat at the table when he finally has everything. You split the bills, you rewrite his CV, and you sit through his endless monologues about how the world misunderstands his brilliance. Yet here is the rather brutal truth about male psychology that polite society refuses to whisper. The moment you begin to build a man, you cease to be his muse and rapidly morph into his surrogate mother. It is a dangerously subtle shift. You mistake his heavy reliance on your emotional labor for genuine intimacy. You become his safe harbor, his personal life coach, his unpaid therapist. But let us be brutally honest for a moment. A man does not lust after his project manager, nor does he fantasize about the woman who serves as his rehabilitation center. By playing the tireless builder, you are inadvertently obliterating the very foundation of sexual polarity. Masculine energy is inherently driven by a primal need to provide, protect, and conquer. It thrives on the friction of overcoming challenges to secure a prize. When you kindly remove those obstacles, when you insist on doing the heavy lifting to make his life easier, you strip him of his masculine imperative. You make his existence wonderfully comfortable, but comfort, my dear, is the absolute antithesis of raw magnetic attraction. He may feel indebted to you, but gratitude rarely fuels a burning devotion. Inevitably, the relationship begins to rot from the inside out, poisoned by a quiet, mutual resentment. You find yourself utterly exhausted, carrying the psychological weight of two adults whilst desperately trying to keep the romance afloat. On his end, he slowly begins to resent you too, even if he dare not articulate it. You see, you have become the living, breathing reminder of his weakest, most pathetic era. Every time he looks into your eyes, he's forced to remember the man who couldn't quite stand on his 2 feet. This silent friction creates a rather dangerous psychological chasm. As he begins to taste the success you helped him orchestrate, his fragile ego demands a clean slate. He desperately craves an environment where he is not viewed as an ongoing renovation project, but rather as a fully formed conqueror. He wants to escape the woman who wiped his tears, seeking out a mirror that reflects only his newly acquired power. And just as he finally secures the empire you built together, a completely different type of woman suddenly steps into the frame. When he finally lands that lucrative position, or his venture suddenly takes off, his male ego undergoes a rather predictable metamorphosis. He no longer wishes to be reminded of the dreary days when he couldn't afford a decent pint, or when you had to subtly foot the bill for your anniversary dinner. He desperately wants to feel like a self-made titan, a natural conqueror who reached the summit purely through his own unassisted brilliance. You, unfortunately, are the walking, talking receipt of his past inadequacies. He craves a clean slate, an audience that only knows the reigning monarch and has absolutely no memory of the struggling peasant. It is precisely at this juncture that the muse makes her effortlessly elegant entrance. She embodies the Siren archetype, a woman who hasn't lifted a single perfectly manicured finger to lay the bricks of his empire. She didn't spend her Friday nights proofreading his desperate emails, nor did she tolerate his miserable temper tantrums when his bank account was overdrawn. She simply arrives, deeply anchored in her dark feminine energy, entirely unbothered and requiring nothing less than the absolute premium version of him. To your profound bewilderment, he enthusiastically hands her the very kingdom you shed tears to build. You watch, utterly horrified, as he whisks her away on the luxury holidays and showers her with the spontaneous romantic gestures you practically begged for. It feels like a terribly cruel joke, but it is simply the cold mathematics of male psychology. He does not treat her better because she is inherently superior. He treats her beautifully because she absolutely requires it. She does not build, she merely occupies the throne he provides. Here is the bitter pill that every recovering Bob the Builder must eventually swallow. A man fundamentally cannot respect what he hasn't had to bleed for. If you offer your devotion on a bargain basement discount, asking for nothing whilst endlessly giving him everything, his subconscious will value you at precisely the price you set, which is nothing. The muse, conversely, forces him to open his wallet, invest his time, and strategize for her attention. Because he had to work exceptionally hard to secure her, his psychological attachment to her becomes fiercely unbreakable. He guards the muse with his life because she represents the ultimate trophy of his success, whilst you, rather tragically, represent the stabilizers on his childhood bicycle. You handed over your youth and emotional sanity under the false assumption that loyalty was a guarantee you could purchase with endless sacrifices. But if playing the martyr only secures your own replacement, and if self-sacrifice actively repels masculine devotion, one must urgently ask, how do you completely shatter this disastrous pattern before you waste another fleeting year of your life? To step out of this miserable cycle, you must first comprehend the golden rule of masculine investment. A man's devotion is tethered strictly to what he invests in you, never what you invest in him. It is a rather bitter realization, but you cannot love a man into valuing you by doing his laundry, paying his half of the rent, or solving his career crises. He subconsciously attaches value only to the woman he spends his hard-earned money, precious time, and mental energy trying to please. The more effort he expends, the more terrified he becomes of losing his investment. It really is basic economics masked as romance. You must ruthlessly strip away your savior complex. When you cross paths with a man overflowing with raw potential, do yourself a tremendous favor and leave him entirely alone. Potential is merely a pleasant illusion, a hypothetical currency that has never paid a single bill nor bought a solitary bouquet of flowers. You are looking for a finished product, or at the very least, a man who is actively building his own foundation without needing you to mix the cement. If he requires a life coach to become a functioning adult, he is simply not ready to court a queen. Let us look at a rather practical scenario. When he vaguely suggests hanging out on a Saturday evening, but makes absolutely no concrete plans, the builder would immediately panic, find a charming little cocktail bar, and book a table so the night isn't ruined. You, however, are going to do nothing of the sort. Instead of frantically checking your phone for a postcode, you will draw a remarkably hot bath, pour a generous glass of Malbec, and immerse yourself in a decent book. If he cannot orchestrate a simple date, he certainly cannot manage a kingdom, and you are not in the business of teaching basic logistics. This brings us to the ultimate standard of the destiny's decree woman. You are a high-value prize to be won, not a complimentary rehabilitation center for unestablished men. You must cultivate an aura of dark feminine detachment, an elegant ruthlessness that communicates your time is exquisitely valuable. You demand a man who comes to the table with his own feast, rather than one who shows up with an empty plate expecting you to cook. Resting in your feminine energy means allowing him the absolute privilege of proving his worth through consistent, undeniable action. Embodying this siren energy does not mean you are cold. It means you are fiercely protective of your own essence. By refusing to lay a single brick in his empire, you force him to rise to the occasion or quietly step aside for a man who will. You stop being the invisible foundation and finally become the breathtaking architecture. But once you have successfully broken the chains of the destiny's trap and firmly established yourself on the throne, there is a crucial perspective you must adopt to guarantee he never forgets exactly who he is dealing with. Now, I have a rather provocative question for you. Have you ever caught yourself laying the heavy bricks for a man's castle, only to find yourself firmly locked out once the doors were finally polished? I want to read your stories down in the comments below. Share your experiences, for the most potent lessons are often found in the ashes of our past sacrifices. If you are entirely finished with being a stepping stone and are finally ready to occupy your throne, I invite you to subscribe to Destiny's Decree. Do ensure you activate the notification bell so you never miss a crucial lesson in mastering the dark psychology of relationships. Until next time, remember, you are a queen, not a contractor. Let him build his own empire before he ever dares to invite you in.